Very good. So let's start again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Challenges Digitalization Brings to Peasant Agroecology. My name is Olcay, and I am part of ECVC, European Coordination Via Campesina team. I will be facilitating today's webinar. We are very pleased to have you all with us in this important discussion, which comes at a critical time for Europe's food systems and the people who produce our food. This webinar is the launch of ECVC's new political position on digitalization. It reflects months of work from our members through consultations, workshops, and collaboration with a dedicated task team working on bringing all those consultations, the ideas, the thoughts together. We are joined today by 4 distinguished speakers. Ana Rodriguez, a small-scale dairy farmer from Galicia, state of Spain. Ana is a member of SLG, which is an ECVC member in Galicia, who will introduce the publication to us. We also have Edu, a young farmer from the Netherlands, a member of Toekomstboeren, who will share perspectives of youth, generational renewal, and the challenges of young farmers face with digitalization. Edu is also a member of ECVC's Youth Articulation. Jean Thévenon, our third speaker, again a young farmer and a member of our Youth Articulation, and also a coordination committee member, one of our coordination committee members. And Jean is a member of Confédération Paysanne in the Basque Country in France. And he will speak about risks linked to climate schemes and the impact on small-scale farmers and on peasant agroecology. And finally, we are pleased to welcome Pierluigi Londero from the European Commission's DG Agri Unit A4, who will share the Commission's perspective on digital transition for EU farmers and rural communities. We warmly thank you all to be with us and part of this dialogue today. I would like to share a few practical notes before we begin for everyone in this webinar. Please, we try to arrange all the microphones off in the beginning, so please keep your microphones muted throughout the webinar. This is an interpreted event, English, Spanish, and French. So I kindly ask everyone to speak clearly, slowly, if possible, shorter sentences for everyone to understand each other much better. Your questions, they can be submitted in the chat at any time. Please write your questions in the chat. If you pose your question to a specific speaker, please mention the speaker's name on the chat before your question. So that would be much easier to work to register them in our system. Questions will be grouped by our ECVC support team and will be brought to this space again at the end of all presentations. We also aim to open the floor for short interventions from you for a collective discussion. And I would like to many thanks to ECVC's team working behind the scene. Here we have Ivan, Valentin, Chloe, and Leonie, who are supporting, that you don't see them, but they are doing a huge amount of work behind the scenes. So I would like to thank them. And many thanks to the interpreters. And also, this is not possible without you. And I would like to mention also that this webinar is part of the Reboot Food Project, a European initiative that brings together 14 organizations from 9 countries advocating for a just and sustainable food system. I am grateful that this also a very important project is also allowing us to be here and to share our opinions together. And now my colleague Chloe also will paste this information on the chat. Now, a few words about the publication we are presenting today. So also on the chat, you can see the link of the publication on ECVC's page. So the challenges digitalization brings to peasant agroecology is the political position of ECVC adopted by, again, ECVC's General Assembly. It critically analyzes how digitalization is currently shaping food and farming, and it outlines 25 recommendations to ensure technology supports rather than threatens peasant agroecology, food sovereignty, and the rise of peasants, small-scale producers. Now, I would like to invite our first speaker, Ana Rodriguez, by asking two questions to her. And I believe she's going to give those answers to those questions in her speech. So Anna, can you briefly explain how this position paper was developed and what it represents politically for ECVC? What do you hope policymakers, civil society, and institutions take away from those 25 recommendations in the publication? So the floor is yours, and thank you for your presentation.
Gracias por tu presentación. Con respecto a las preguntas que me planteas antes de iniciar la presentación del documento de la coordinadora, este documento se ha elaborado, es el resultado de un análisis realizado por un equipo de trabajo sobre digitalización. Este equipo de trabajo estaba compuesto por representantes de diferentes organizaciones y también es el resultado de dos talleres internos que se realizaron en 2024. El primero de estos talleres se realizó en febrero de 2024, se centró en las bases de la digitalización y en su presencia en nuestra vida diaria y en los campos. En este taller reconocemos que muchas personas campesinas están obligadas a utilizar tecnologías digitales para recibir las subvenciones de la política agraria común y que muchas tienen dificultades con las aplicaciones y herramientas que son obligatorias en muchos casos. Escuchamos y debatimos sobre 4 conferencias sobre temas muy importantes como la cuarta revolución industrial, la información de secuencias digitales, el discurso sobre la digitalización tanto a nivel internacional como en la UE. Exploramos también en este taller los pros y los contras de la robótica, los robots de ordeño y otras herramientas utilizadas en las fincas lecheras. Por su otra parte, en marzo del 2024 se celebró nuestro segundo taller. En él se hablaron de implicaciones de la alta tecnología y la digitalización en la salud del suelo, en la salud de las plantas y en la salud de los animales, así como el impacto de estas nuevas tecnologías en el mercado. Como bien has dicho, ha sido un documento que que ha aprobado la Asamblea General de la Coordinadora y esperamos que este documento sirva para reflexionar sobre la digitalización y tener una postura sobre esta cuestión. Yo creo que este documento ofrece a las personas con responsabilidad política y a la sociedad en general una visión clara de los riesgos y los desafíos que plantea la digitalización a los campesinos y las campesinas. Por lo tanto, creemos que estos desafíos y estos riesgos también se plantea en general a toda la producción de alimentos. Y esta cuestión de la producción de alimentos no solo nos afecta a nosotras como productoras, también afecta a todas las personas consumidoras y por lo tanto creemos que se debe tener en cuenta. Con este documento y estas 25 recomendaciones instamos a los Estados y a la Unión Europea a que reevalúen su enfoque en materia de tecnología agrícola y reconozcan el papel de la tecnología en el agravamiento de las crisis y también su potencial para mejorar aspectos de nuestras granjas sin perder nuestra autonomía y sin perder el control de los recursos agrícolas. y empezamos con la presentación del documento de la Coordinadora Europea. Antes de nada, quiero darles las gracias por acompañarnos hoy en la presentación oficial del nuevo documento de posición política de la Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina, que, como ya se ha dicho, lleva como título Los retos de la digitalización para la agroecología campesina. Me complace inaugurar este acto en nombre de la Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina. La Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina es una confederación de 28 organizaciones campesinas de 20 países. En esta coordinadora nos reunimos pequeñas y medianas agricultoras, trabajadores y trabajadoras agrícolas y comunidades rurales. Defendemos la soberanía alimentaria y los derechos de los campesinos y de las campesinas en toda Europa. Nuestras organizaciones miembros están en primera línea de la defensa de la soberanía alimentaria, construyendo agroecología campesina y también en primera línea, por lo tanto, de los riesgos y presiones que plantea la digitalización en la agricultura. Mi nombre es Ana Rodríguez, tal y como me ha presentado Olcay, y soy ganadera de leche, de bovino de leche. Soy afiliada del Sindicato Labrego Galego, vivo en Galiza, que es una comunidad autónoma dentro del Estado español. Tenemos un idioma propio, que es es el gallego, con lo cual el español no es mi idioma materno, para que conste también que no me manejo mal en español. El Sindicato Labrego Galego es una organización activa dentro de la Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina y dentro del sindicato me ocupo de la política agraria común y soy la vicerresponsable del sector lácteo. Evidentemente, no soy experta en digitalización. Sufro las consecuencias de esta digitalización en mi actividad diaria como ganadera de leche, como pequeña ganadera de leche. Unos pequeños ejemplos de cómo la digitalización está absolutamente presente en mi día a día. Os comento, en el Estado español no es posible que yo me relacione con la administración a través del papel. Toda mi relación con la administración tiene que llevarse a cabo a través de un teléfono móvil o de un ordenador. Lo que se llamaba administración digital para facilitar nuestra vida, al final nos la complica bastante. Otro ejemplo de nuestro día a día es la firma del contrato de recogida de leche. Es obligatorio para los productores y productoras de leche tener un contrato firmado. Este contrato no lo recibimos en papel, se firma también de forma electrónica y hay muchas personas, muchos ganaderos y ganaderas que no son capaces de leerlos previamente, no son capaces de generar un PDF para poder imprimirlo y por lo tanto están firmando algo que no conocen. Y otro tema así de todos los días es que subastamos los terneros en una lonja agropecuaria mediante una app también. Es decir, esto es nuestro día a día. En cualquier caso, hoy estamos orgullosos de presentar nuestro documento de posición política, los retos de la digitalización para la agroecología campesina. Como os he comentado, este es un documento que es el resultado de más de 1 año y medio de debate y análisis colectivo dentro de nuestro movimiento. Por lo tanto, lanzamos hoy esta posición para dar visibilidad a las consecuencias políticas de la digitalización en la agricultura, puesto que se está produciendo sin debate público, sin rendición de cuentas y sin centrarse en las necesidades y realidades de las personas productoras de alimentos a pequeña y mediana escala. En el documento se hacen 25 recomendaciones clave a las personas responsables de la toma de decisiones y a las instituciones. Para CVC es importante señalar que la digitalización no es neutral. A menudo se presenta como inevitable, moderna, beneficiosa, sostenible. La realidad es que las herramientas y plataformas digitales están determinadas por intereses económicos y políticos y a menudo concentran el control en manos de unas pocas empresas e inversores poderosos. Si no se cuestiona, la digitalización corre el riesgo de reforzar el poder corporativo, acelerar la desigualdad y marginar y desplazar a las personas productoras de alimentos, sus conocimientos, sus prácticas y su autonomía. Por este motivo, en la Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina se ha elaborado este documento. Es un documento político. Es el resultado de debates, talleres, contribuciones de nuestras organizaciones miembros y fue adoptado colectivamente a través del proceso democrático interno que nos caracteriza. Presenta 25 recomendaciones y se estructuran en torno a 5 ejes políticos principales. Se trata de ámbitos en los que la digitalización se cruza directamente con los pilares básicos de la agroecología, la soberanía alimentaria y los derechos de los campesinos. Estos 5 ejes son: el primero, conocimiento campesino e innovación agroecológica; el segundo, propiedad de los datos y soberanía tecnológica; el tercero, falsas soluciones a la crisis del clima y la biodiversidad; cuarto, acceso a la tierra y renovación generacional; quinto, regulación pública, participación y gobernanza basada en los derechos. Los ejes 3 y 4 se tratarán en las siguientes ponencias con más profundidad, las que me van a seguir a esta presentación. Por lo tanto, yo simplemente les transmito unas cuestiones básicas de cada uno de los 5 ejes y, tal y como se ha comentado, tienen el informe completo a su disposición en los 3 idiomas en el chat de este webinario. El primero de los 5 ejes, conocimiento campesino e innovación agroecológica. ¿Qué pretendemos con este eje? La agroecología campesina se basa en el conocimiento, en que está enraizada en la tradición, en la experimentación y en el aprendizaje comunitario. La digitalización suele dar prioridad a tecnologías y soluciones externas e ignora nuestros sistemas de conocimiento. Muchas veces oímos que la digitalización aporta innovación a la agricultura, pero esta digitalización ignora que los campesinos y las campesinas somos innovadoras. Lo que necesitamos son tecnologías que se basen en nuestros propios sistemas de conocimiento y los apoyen. En este eje se trata de hacer hincapié en las siguientes cuestiones. Primera, la importancia de apoyar la innovación local y colectiva, no de sustituirla. Segunda, la necesidad de soluciones de código abierto y baja tecnología, desarrolladas en colaboración con los campesinos y las campesinas, y no soluciones impuestas desde fuera. Tercero, un área crítica en este sentido son las semillas. Los sistemas digitales de trazabilidad se utilizan cada vez más para controlar el movimiento de semillas e introducir patentes nuevas. Los sistemas de semillas campesinos deben protegerse de la captura digital. Cuarta, garantizar que la financiación pública de la investigación apoye las herramientas y la formación agroecológicas y no solo la agricultura industrial de precisión. Quinta, reconocer el derecho a no utilizar herramientas digitales, especialmente cuando no se adaptan a la realidad local. Por lo que respecta al segundo eje, propiedad de los datos y soberanía tecnológica, se centra en la soberanía de los datos para los campesinos y las campesinas. ¿Qué queremos decir con esto? Que tenemos que tener el derecho a controlar, acceder y rechazar que otros operadores hagan uso de los datos producidos en nuestras granjas. Derechos colectivos sobre los datos agrícolas, es decir, especialmente para comunidades, cooperativas y redes, no derechos privados. Necesidad de normas estrictas sobre recopilación, almacenamiento e intercambio de datos, incluida la prohibición de extraer datos sin autorización. Y una regulación pública de las plataformas digitales que actúan como intermediarios y guardianes en el sistema alimentario. La digitalización sabemos todas que generan grandes cantidades de datos, pero ¿a quién pertenecen? ¿Quién decide cómo se utilizan? Las campesinas y los campesinos, estamos siendo desposeídos de nuestros datos. Ya se trata de maquinaria, aplicaciones de gestión agrícola o vigilancia por satélite, gran parte de los datos generados en la agricultura actual son extraídos y controlados por empresas privadas. Los agricultores y las agricultoras desconocemos cómo se utilizan estos datos y estamos atrapados en ecosistemas controlados por fabricantes de maquinaria y empresas tecnológicas. Los datos de la maquinaria son un buen ejemplo de esto, es decir, compramos las máquinas, no controlamos la información que recoge y nuestro compromiso con esta empresa de maquinaria es por toda la vida de la máquina. Necesitamos, por lo tanto, una regulación pública que garantice los derechos, la privacidad y la soberanía de los datos. El tercer eje de este documento se basa en las falsas soluciones a la crisis del clima y la de biodiversidad. Como he comentado antes, este tema será tratado con más profundidad en la anterior ponencia, con lo cual solo decir que la digitalización también se utiliza para aplicar falsas soluciones a la crisis climática, sobre todo a través de dos temas de gran actualidad, que son los créditos de carbono y los créditos de biodiversidad o naturaleza. Estos sistemas se basan en gran medida en el control la notificación y la verificación digital. En la práctica, benefician a los grandes terratenientes y a los agentes de la agroindustria. Y los productores y las productoras a pequeña y mediana escala nos empujan hacia sistemas burocráticos y tenemos una escasa recompensa real de todo esto. Estamos viendo además cómo la biodiversidad, incluidas las semillas y la salud del suelo, se reducen a unidades digitales para el comercio y la especulación. Nuestra postura es clara: ni los créditos de carbono ni los créditos de biodiversidad o naturaleza son soluciones agroecológicas. ¿Qué criticamos en este eje? Los sistemas de créditos para la agricultura del carbono y la naturaleza biodiversidad, que se basan en el seguimiento digital, la certificación privada y la lógica de mercado. El riesgo que tenemos de acaparamiento de tierras y desplazamiento a través de proyectos de compensación de carbono. La priorización que se está realizando de los sistemas de cumplimiento digitalizados frente a la transformación ecológica real. El peligro de convertir la acción por el clima en un mercado de métricas, donde el centro de atención pasa de la producción de alimentos y la salud de los ecosistemas a la especulación financiera. Abogamos también en este eje por políticas públicas que apoyen la agroecología campesina en los territorios y no por un lavado verde financiarizado. El cuarto eje que aborda este documento tiene que ver con el acceso a la tierra y la renovación generacional. La renovación generacional y la digitalización también se van a tratar posteriormente y, por lo tanto, simplemente decir que la digitalización está cambiando la forma en la que se valora la tierra. Está cambiando la forma en la que accedemos a la tierra y se gobierna. No a nuestro favor, no a favor de los agricultores jóvenes que quieren incorporarse o de los pequeños productores y productoras. Hay un creciente uso de herramientas digitales que se utilizan en la gobernanza de la tierra y que refuerzan tendencias que limitan la renovación generacional. El aumento de los costes del capital agrícola, incluida la tierra, está siendo impulsado en parte por los procesos de digitalización y financiarización de la tierra. Esto dificulta cada vez más y es uno de los motivos por lo que es cada vez más difícil que personas jóvenes se hagan cargo de granjas. La gobernanza digital de la tierra tiende a promover modelos basados en la propiedad privada y la lógica del mercado y excluyen sistemas de tenencia más diversos y comunitarios. Estos enfoques corren el riesgo de reforzar las desigualdades y acelerar la desaparición de las pequeñas granjas y no apoyan a la próxima generación de agricultores y agricultoras agroecológicas. Por otra parte, la digitalización debe incorporar también una perspectiva de género y responder a las necesidades de un colectivo que somos la mitad de la humanidad. Tenemos que trabajar para que la digitalización de la actividad agraria no sea otro motivo más de exclusión y discriminación. Por otra parte, los trabajadores y las trabajadoras también se ven afectadas. Los sistemas de vigilancia, la gestión algorítmica y la precarización del trabajo en plataformas socavan la seguridad en el empleo y los derechos laborales. Este eje, por lo tanto, explora varios puntos, como las herramientas digitales, como la puntuación por satélite o la tarificación algorítmica del suelo pueden inflar los precios del suelo y dificultan el acceso a las tierras por parte de los agricultores y de las agricultoras, como las tecnologías de agricultura
Excuse me,
inteligente.
excuse me, Anna. We are just over time. Can you, in a couple of minutes, conclude?
Ok,
Thank you.
terminamos, paso al último eje, es decir, cómo las tecnologías de la agricultura inteligente se dirigen a las grandes granjas, empujando a personas jóvenes y a personas recién llegadas a posiciones marginales, la exclusión de las personas jóvenes agricultoras de la toma de decisiones sobre política digital. También pedimos un apoyo público claro para garantizar que la digitalización no bloquee la renovación generacional, sino que cree un espacio para la juventud y las nuevas ideas y apoye a zonas rurales vivas. Y ya para terminar, el último eje: regulación pública, participación y gobernanza basada en los derechos. Necesitamos una regulación pública basada en los derechos humanos, la soberanía alimentaria y la democracia. No puede dejarse todo en manos del sector privado. Esto incluye leyes que garanticen protección de datos, protección laboral y el acceso a la tecnología. Y necesitamos también un marco jurídico claro para defender la soberanía de las semillas e impedir nuevas formas de biopiratería. Queremos que la digitalización se trate como una cuestión política, no solo técnica, y, por lo tanto, y ya termino, desde la Coordinadora Europea Vía Campesina creemos que estos 5 ejes y 25 recomendaciones forman un marco exhaustivo, fundamentado y político. Este documento no rechaza la tecnología, pero exige un cambio completo en la digitalización. Necesitamos ser conscientes de a quién sirve, quién la controla y cómo se gobierna. Y por esta razón estamos celebrando hoy este seminario web y les doy la bienvenida a todas y a todos a lo que queda. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's a big document with very diverse subjects, and in a very short time, you have done a great job. Thank you so much for your presentation. And following Anna, I would like to give the floor to Edu, who is going to, again, maybe some of the participants joined newly. Edu is a member of Toekomstsporen in Netherlands, ECVC member organization in Netherlands, and also a member of Youth Articulation, an active member of the task team in the digitalization paper. So he's going to today present the challenges and opportunities for youth and generational renewal through digitalization. So before you start, Edu, I would like to ask you two questions. So what are the main digital barriers for young and aspiring farmers, and how do they link to broader struggles around land and income? Also, do you think can digital tools play a positive role in generation renewal? And if so, how? You have 15 minutes
Okay,
for all those.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all, Jill. Thanks, interpreters. Hello to all the people around and all the ECVC friends in the office. So before to start, I just want to say congratulations to Olshay and all the farmers who've been giving contributions this last year and a half on this beautiful process. As I said, my name is Eduard. I'm coming from the Catalan countryside, but I live in the Netherlands for the last 10 years. I'm a small-scale vegetable farmer. I run a community-supported agriculture, and I'm going to try to be talking, as Olchol said, about the challenges from young people when it comes to digitalization. I'm going to open my document. So first of all, I want to say that I'm a member of ECVC in some working groups like the Climate, Agroecology, or the Migrant Working Group, but I'm also a member of the Youth Articulation, as Olsha mentioned before. So maybe before to start, it's important to clarify that while some working groups focus more on specific topics or campaign or more task-oriented, the articulations are more long-term groups based on identities, collective, and to bring the voice of the articulations both internally in ECVC and externally. And here I want to try also to bring the voice of all my friends from the youth articulation when it comes to generational renewal. So I'm going to be reading some of the demands and conclusions regarding young farmers and generational renewal, and at the same time sharing some personal experience as a young farmer and also personal experience from other young farmers that we collect in the document and also have been collecting in the last years. The way I structure my contribution is the following one. First, starting with the political framing of the publication in regards to generational renewal. I will continue with the relationship of youth, access to land, and digitalization. I will continue then talking the digital dependency and youth exclusion and the top-down digitalization. And finally, we have some demands out of the 25 demands, some demands in terms of generational renewal and some conclusions. So the first point, in terms of political framing of the publication on generational renewal, I would like to start by explaining why digitalization it is a generational issue and stress how young people like me are both targeted and excluded from the digital strategies in agriculture. So digitalization, we think it's clearly a generational issue because it disproportionately affects young and aspiring farmers who often normally lack the financial resources, land access, fair incomes, and institutional support. So we need to engage with these very costly corporate-driven technologies, which creates an extra barrier to what already creates generational renewal. But what do we mean exactly when we say that digital technologies are seen both as barrier and opportunity for young farmers at the same time? I will try to explain. I think while some of us might appreciate access to modern technologies like farm management apps or platforms for connecting with other farms or the potential of this is also clashing with some systematic challenges. So in one hand, this is promising us, like young people, efficiency, access to knowledge, and potential to attract young generation. But at the same time, the implementation of all these digital tools is always really top-down, corporate-driven, and for me, one of the most important as well, it's very expensive. So this already creates a lot of disadvantages to use because we lack capital and we have less experience. So we think that bridging this division requires more youth economical support in the agriculture sector, more public investment in rural connectivity, and the creation of digital tools that are bottom-up and co-created by young farmers. And this should be based on agroecological practices, participatory research, and especially not top-down. So some of the proposals I'm going to be talking about are the promotion of equitable access to digital infrastructure and tools, support the co-creation of technologies that integrates agroecological practices, and third, the need of addressing systematic issues like land access, fair prices, and financial stability, alongside with the digital innovation we're talking about. So ECVC and myself, we really believe that by giving priority to all these actions, digitalization can become a tool for empowering the next generation and the next generation of European farmers. I got a sip of water. So in my second point, I want to put more emphasis on how young people and access to land in terms of digitalization, sometimes it's clashing. So the challenges of youth in accessing land and explaining how this is already difficult, access to land, and how digitalization can make it even more complicated for us. And I'm going to share some personal experience. So we think that youth is already facing digital inequalities because we have less access to infrastructure, less capital, knowledge, and also less tailored tools. But also because digitalization often assumes large-scale farming models, which is really not appropriate for the type of agroecological practices that we want to practice. And here I want to share a quick experience that I faced this last winter. So I live in the Netherlands for 10 years, but I'm planning to move back to my territory, to the Catalan countryside. So collectively, I've been looking for land. Collectively, I've been looking to take over some farms for generational renewal. But when looking at these territories, at this, a lot of high tech, it was already impossible for me and my collective to access this land. So just so you know, if we add the difficulties of access to land and all the high prices also that these new technologies brings to the farms, makes it really, really impossible for young farmers, so make it very difficult for young farmers to access land. So it's challenges that we're facing when entering and actually remaining in farming. So I would like to do a short summary of the relationship of youth and land and generational renewal. In first place, youth is already fighting systematic barriers on access to land, such high cost, lack of inheritance opportunities, and limit of institutional support. Secondly, this digitalization tends to favor capital intensive and large-scale monoculture farms. This is only causing more land concentration in the hands of these agriculture corporations, and it's marginalizing young farmers and other marginalized communities. The third point is that digital land management systems focus a lot on markets and data and high technology, and this is making it harder for young people like me to access land. And the fourth point is that because of all these digital tools are always controlled by corporation and corporation actors, this really affects the autonomy and the sovereignty of young people to control the future of the production and the farm. So to conclude on land and digitalization in regards to generational renewal, I think we need a much more fair and equitable access to land, and this must be really a priority in any digital strategies we will see in the CAP, we will see in the future negotiations. It must be a priority to ensure a just and sustainable future for agriculture. So in my third point, I want to talk about digital tools that creates this dependency and exclusion of youth coming from the decision-making process, and how this is affecting, as I mentioned in the last point, the autonomy of the young people. And I will try to share also some personal experience, in that case, not from me, some from me, but also some from young farmers. So digitalization is typically top-down and corporate-driven, as we've been mentioning. And this leaves us a very little influence over the design of the tools, the implementation, and the governance. And I want to have a very simple example, but I think we can bring this to a bigger cases. But this week, we just got a new two-wheel tractor at the farm where I work. And this was really a peasant-to-peasant transfer of knowledge. We spent 2 months visiting farms, and we're trying different two-wheel tractors. And at the end, thanks to one farmer, we were getting a lot of knowledge. We tried different mechanization tools and different amendments. So at the end, this knowledge transfer from peasant to peasant, it really helps us to mechanize and to bring a bit more easy and mechanization to our farm, which normally it's very impossible when you have to deal with expensive softwares or really corporate-driven digital tools, because you cannot even access to these people. But it's not only these digital tools, it's also forcing all farmers and also youth, of course, into these subscription models that we mentioned in the introduction. And here I want to put an example of a collective farm of a friend of mine in the Catalan Pyrenees. They've been working with these cows necklaces for the last 2 years. It's a tool that it was working very good for them, but at some point it's not working. Connectivity is not working. But now they're locked into this subscription. They're locked to pay the updates of the software for the coming years. It's a collective of young farmers, so they don't have a lot of income. So again, it's an example, and there's plenty of those, of how these digital tools and how these software sometimes lock farmers up, and you are trapped in these types of systems. So in summary, I want to say that we call for a much more inclusive, participatory governance of digitalization to ensure that youth have a meaningful role in shaping the future of agriculture, because we don't want to become the users of corporate tech companies, but we want to be the co-creators of these tools adapted
Excuse me, yes, Edu has been dropped. I was trying to understand. Yes, exactly. The countryside in very central Netherlands is not supporting. The structure doesn't supporting. So he's dropped, and he was almost concluding his part. So what I propose is we will continue, and in the end we will ask him to do his conclusion again, if you all agree with that. I'm also putting my camera on. So by saying that, I am turning to Jean Thévenot. Good to see you, Jean, here. And you are going to present the risks linked to climate schemes and the impact on small-scale farmers, on peasants. And as I ask 2 questions to every speaker, I would like to ask 2 questions to you before your presentation. So, Jean, as one of the CC members, coordination committee members of ECVC as well, and also responsible on agroecology and climate working groups, Why does ECVC view carbon and biodiversity nature credits as false solutions in the framework of the digitalization as well? And what are the concrete risks so these markets pose for peasant communities and agroecological farming? Because when you see the document, the publication, there is a big part on climate, and there are quite a lot sentences, many sentences talking about risks that these markets pose for peasant communities. So the floor is yours. You have also 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olcay. I hope my network is going to be also good. If not, please tell me. So first, thank you very much. Thank you, Olcay, and thanks everyone for making this webinar possible and happening today. I actually think that's a very important topic and matter, because we all know that digitalization tools are becoming more and more present in everyday life, and now also in farming. And we in ECVT think that we need some kind of political thinking over digitalization. So we are not only receiving or even sometimes being pushed into digitalization, but we can actually choose the kind of digitalization that we want and that will support us. So I think I will answer to your questions in my presentation. So first of all, I'm, as I said already, a young farmer in the Basque Country, a member of ELB, Euskal Herriko Laborantza Ganbara, the local branch of Via Campesina in France, and also a member of the CC, the Coordination Committee of ECVC. First, I think I have an important statement to make that will link then to all my presentation, is to say that in our opinion, and I think that's something important from the work of ECVC on that issue in the past year, we think that digitalization should be viewed as a tool and not as an objective. Like, what we mean by that is we mean that we can use digitalization and some digital tools in order to reach some other objectives in terms of production, in terms of environment, in terms of social effects, etc. But it needs to stay a tool that we're using and not the objective. So whenever we see companies or public institutions saying that the solution is digitalization, we need to say that we disagree, because digitalization cannot be a solution as so. Digitalization is only a tool. And then, as with any tool, you have to think about it. And sometimes this tool can be useful. And in some cases, this tool can actually be useless or even counterproductive. So we think that digitalization, we cannot say digitalization is good or digitalization is bad. It's just like each case will be different. And in each case, we will have to think, is digitalization a good way, a good tool to help us reach an objective or not? And then we decide if we want or not to apply this digital tool, for example. So yeah, just saying that this is really important for us, that it cannot be the objective. And for us in ECVC, the objective is peasant-based agroecology, meaning that we want to change the food system towards a system that is better for the environment, better for people and for consumers in terms of quality of food, better for the climate, etc., etc. And this transition from the current food system towards a peasant-based agroecology food system might use some tools of digitalization, because in some cases it might be really useful, and in other cases it might be not. And so we have to analyze what we can take, what will be useful for this transition in digitalization. And this is basically why we made us this work on this paper. And this is basically how we reached this conclusion and the 25 recommendations that we have. It's basically in order to try to analyze politically the consequences of these digitalization processes, and to decide what we want to support and what we want to control somehow. And now I will focus, so as also I was saying, a little bit more on one important topic, which is climate and biodiversity. So I think we all know here that we're facing a very important environmental crisis at the moment on the planet, even if the current geopolitical context might disturb a little bit this fact, but the reality is that there is a climate crisis and there is a biodiversity crisis on the planet now, and that obviously farming as being one of the main land users on the planet is linked with this crisis. Now the question is how and what can we do in order to have this farming sector being more gentle and more friendly with both climate and biodiversity. And what we've been seeing in the past few months, even now years, is that the solution that is being proposed by, let's say, the main institutions and mainstream business actors is to go towards a financial and technological solution, meaning that they think that using technology to monitor biodiversity and climate, and then using markets, namely carbon markets or biodiversity markets, basically selling and buying carbon or biodiversity assets, we will be able to solve the crisis. And the best example of that is in Europe. We have been now in the process for the past 2 years on the creation of something called CRCF. So that's the Carbon Removal Certification Framework. And this is basically the policy that will in Europe set and decide how these carbon credits will be exchanged and what is going to be accepted as a carbon offset, what will not be accepted, and how you can sell and buy these credits. And I have to say that from ECVC, we joined a platform of group of NGOs and other unions fighting against this and basically saying that we are against any kind of offsetting. And this platform is called Real Zero Europe. Why? Because offsetting is actually not so useful for climate change and biodiversity even less, but actually it has strong impacts on farmers and rural communities worldwide. So this is what I'm going to develop now. And the link with technology and digitalization is that all this is possible thanks to or through digital tools. It means like when you want to sell carbon credits on the market, you need digital tools both to calculate the amount of carbon that you're storing on your farm, for example, and then also you need these digital tools to sell your credits on the market. That is going to be a digital market. So here we see that the way institutions in general, and especially in Europe, want to solve the climate crisis is through a system that completely relies on digital tools and digital technologies. And this is why there is a strong link between this paper that we're releasing today and the issue of climate change and biodiversity crisis. So first, saying that according to this logic of carbon credits, and nature biodiversity credits, they both rely on a system, as I said, based on digital tools to calculate the amount of carbon that you can store, etc. Remote sensors and other kind of gadgets that you can actually have on farms to calculate the CO2 that you're supposedly storing or avoiding to emit. And also, they also rely on private certification, meaning they rely on private actors that will come to decide if your carbon is stored in a good way or not, and if you can sell it on the market. And then, as I said, these credits will be sold on a financial market. And this, like a little bit, we already have the Agri-ETS. So this is a kind of stock exchange for credits for carbon, and it's supposed to become soon also a market for biodiversity or nature credits. Both these markets are financial digital markets. So basically they rely on classic systems of trading, selling, buying, etc., and with possible speculation over these markets. This whole system favors large farms, because if you want to implement such systems to monitor the quantity of carbon that you're storing on your farm, it costs money. And so the only farms that are actually able to develop such tools and to calculate the amount of CO2 that they are storing are large-scale farms. Same with selling. Whenever you have these credits, if you want to sell them on the market, you need to have a knowledge of these financial markets that actually it's not possible for farmers to sell directly in the market. So it means that you will have intermediaries that will buy or likely buy carbon credits from farmers to then sell it on the market. And obviously they will take some kind of percentage of the benefits on the way. We have examples in France ranging from 20 to 50% of the money going actually in the pocket of the intermediary instead of going in the pocket of the farmer. And in the global south, we have example even worse than that. So that's the first issue. It will favor large scale farms. And then the second question is maybe more a kind of moral or ethical question, but we think in ECVC and in Via Campesina that finance cannot be the solution. I mean, finance is the problem. Finance is what created these crises, the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. So we think that asking finance to solve the crisis that was created by finance is not possible. And so we do believe that we cannot fight climate change or biodiversity crisis through basically market mechanism. We need public policies, we need public intervention, we need tax, we need public incentives, but we need something managed by public policies and public actors, institutions, if we want to have a real impact and to actually adapt and face these crises. It will not be possible, in our opinion, to solve this crisis only with market solutions. And we actually think that these market solutions simplify all the problem into units of money and will basically reinforce the extractivist logic that we already see today, making actually carbon not something that you want to get rid of, but on the contrary, something that you want to have so you can buy and sell it on the market. So this is quite a big issue for us. And I was saying I will develop very shortly also on the impacts on the global south. We know that at the moment, a lot of these compensation projects are being developed in the south, in Africa, South America, Asia, with projects basically of private companies, mostly from the global north, but not only, going in these countries and then developing projects that are supposed to store carbon in the ground somehow, and then selling credits on the global market. Unfortunately, in most cases, these companies are acting in a very unfriendly way with rural communities. Even in we have some cases where we know there is some human rights abuses and some very strong human rights abuses with forced eviction, destruction of villages and houses, stealing of land, etc., etc. So we already see that these actors are actually rushing to access land in the global south in order to sell credits on the global north. And this obviously is something that in Via Campesina we cannot accept. So we will definitely say that that's why here a good example on how digitalization and financialization is actually not solving the problem, but actually being even worse on the very people that are the first people impacted by climate change, namely the rural people of the global south. Plus, and I will conclude with that, we know that these technologies, especially digital tools, artificial intelligence, are very, very big consumers of metals and energy. And this is also not climate friendly. I mean, if we want to have sensors for CO2 in every and each farm in Europe, this will need so many energy and so much quantity of metals to produce the gadgets that actually in the end, the impact will be a lot of mining and a lot of energy production just to make these tools work. And so, by the way, more emission of CO2. So if we calculate the whole process, we see that often these digital tool and digital logics to fight climate change actually might have no impact at all, because the positive impact they could have will be destroyed by the cost of production and use of these tools. So there is definitely a lot of things to dig into that. And if there is any people in the room today working on these issues, we're really likely interested to know more, because we really think I already know that this question is quite important. So this is why we think that using digital technologies and markets to solve the climate and biodiversity crisis are not accurate. And now, to be a little bit positive and optimistic too, what are the positive things that we can propose, and what are the good uses, let's say, of digital technologies. So in ECVC, what we stand for, as I said before, is that we think that the solution for food sector is to have a transition from the current food system that is unfair and basically destroying the climate and biodiversity towards a system that will actually be better for the planet and also better for farmers and also better for consumers, because we will have also a better quality of food. So if we want to make that transition, we definitely need time, money, help, support, etc., etc. And that could be actually a good idea to have money from polluting companies. So for example, that's one of the ideas we have in ECVC. Instead of having a market, maybe we could have some kind of carbon tax, and then we would tax money from big polluters and then use this money to support a transition of the farming model in Europe from, as I said again, the current system towards a peasant-based agroecological model. We know that's possible. It's just a question of political will from the institutions. And that would be way more useful and efficient in terms of fighting climate change and helping farmers to make a transition. Because that's really important for us in ECVC. We don't want to leave anyone behind. We don't want the climate crisis and the policies we develop to fight it to impact small and medium-scale farmers. We don't want them to be attacked or to be responsible for something that actually is not their fault. I mean, the CAP and the public policies in Europe have been pushing farmers toward industrialization very strongly in the past few years, I mean, in the past decades even. So it's not possible to now ask them to go reverse completely without any support. So we think that we need strong support. And so we call for public policies and public money to support this transition. And then, and this is where technology can come in, then obviously some technologies and some new tools and some digital tools that we're developing are very useful in order to have this agroecology and peasant-based agroecology developed. For example, as Edu was saying, we need more exchange, farmer-to-farmer exchanges on how to work the land, how new techniques, etc. So here, digital tools help farmers to connect with one another, to have meetings, to send pictures or elements to learn from one another, and that's something quite positive that could be also developed. We also know that some kind of automation to make work easier for farmers on farms is also very good. So we know that, for example, in my farm, I use some automation from digital automation. So my greenhouses can open and close automatically according to the weather. So I don't have to do it all the day. So these are examples that we think are good. But as it was said before, if we want this example to be really efficient and good for farmers, they need to be managed by farmers. It means the farmer need to know how it works, need to have control over the data and the use of these technologies. And then also the cost of these technologies need to be controlled somehow, because if not, we will have very high-tech farms that are actually impossible to transfer or to transmit to young farmers. And then finally, whenever digital tools are being used, we think that because agroecology is something quite holistic, we need to have a big view of what's going on. And so we think that, as I said at the beginning, we cannot say digitalization is good or bad. We need to, in each and every case, have a participatory process from the ground, basically from the farmers that will use the technology, asking them how this technology could be good for them and develop these technologies in a way that farmers are included both in the development and in the creation of these technologies, instead of these technologies coming in a top-down logic from big companies to farms. And actually, just concluding on that, this participatory process should include not only farmers, but also farm workers, because they are also often the one using the tools, and obviously consumers and citizens in general. And we think that this is a long-term vision that could actually help solve the crisis that we have now, instead of just relying on magical technological solutions that in our experience are not so efficient most of the time. I will stop here because I think the 15 minutes are more than done. But just to conclude, so as I was saying, we believe in ECVC that the current climate and biodiversity crisis that we face must be treated in a public way, not in a private market-based way first. And second, we think that peasant-based agroecology is the solution and that we need a fair transition of the agri-food system, and that digitalization must serve this transition and not replace it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jean. And thank you for also following the timeline. We are a little bit over time, but we have quite a big space to do our exchange. So still we are good. So after listening the small-scale farmers, peasants, ECVC members, I would like to give the floor to Pierluigi. Pierluigi Londero is the head of the A4 Unit A4 Digitalization at DG Agri at the EU Commission. And today he's going to share the digital transition for EU farmers and rural communities from the perspective of the work has been done at the Commission. And for that, before your presentation, I also would like to ask two questions to you. How does the Commission's approach to digitalization in agriculture respond to the concerns raised in this position paper and here today, what we heard from the peasants themselves? And does the Commission foresee any specific measures to ensure that digitalization supports small-scale food producers, especially in the context of youth inclusion and environmental integrity? And we are listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for inviting me to this launch of your paper, and congratulations to the authors for this very rich paper and insightful for us. So as it was mentioned, my name is Pierluigi Londero. I've been working in the European Commission in DG Agri for many years now, 28 years, always in agriculture. As an analyst, an economist, I've been looking at various aspects, policy reforms, but also markets. And in the last few years, I've been looking at this part of the reality of today, for everybody and for farmers, which is the digitalization, the digital, the data, which are the two sides of the same coin. So I will try to give you a couple of insight of how we work in the Commission on digital, and in particular for starting from the end, if you want. In February, the Commission adopted a communication called the Vision for Agriculture and Food, which is a follow-up of something new, which happened last year. It was a strategic dialogue on agriculture, which it was an attempt, I would say a successful attempt to try to depolarize the conversation around agriculture and food. So as a follow-up, this communication proposes an approach, a vision, how to build an agri-food sector system, in fact, that is attractive, competitive, future-proof, and fair for the current and for the next generations. So it's very ambitious. The communication, of course, is a vague document. It tries to put some directions, strategic directions. Inside that document, there is a recognition, or at least identification of digitalization as an instrument, as was said before, as a tool, not only to strengthen the economic performance. This we hear a lot. It's the main argument for selling these products by the companies, but also to contribute to different elements of sustainability. And here I have to say that over the years, I've always seen in certain moments especially during economic crisis, there is this dilemma: how can we do protection of the environment when our economy is doing bad, and when we go first? And I found that many examples where, in these situations, instead of choosing one or the other, you need a third ingredient. You need something else. The same ingredients cannot make the cake, so you need a third ingredient. And I find that the technology sometimes bring the potential to address both topics at the same time. So we also see, and we have evidence, and I will mention a few resources that we use and we in fact commissioned, that this digitalization is not taking place, or at least not taking place quickly, leaving, in fact, agriculture as a sector a bit lagging behind compared to other sectors, even normal say, citizens in the street, because it still, you see high cost of the technology. We see lack of skills to master this technology. We see lack of trust of the users of this technology. And well, last but not least, and we've seen some example during this webinar, connectivity. We are able to have this conversation thanks to connectivity, broadband, and high-speed internet. So if you don't have that, it's very difficult to digitalize. So this adoption of digital tools, which could bring, in my view, benefits, which, according to the paper in particular, highlights many challenges, and I don't dispute that there are challenges and risks. So the adoption lags behind, and the vision concludes that we need to put forward a strategy also for European EU digitalization in agriculture and rural areas. So this is a bit what is happening at the moment. And of course, the travel, let's say, started before, a few years ago, and so some of your members have participated actively to the process. We've done a foresight study to analyze the impact of the digital transition on farmers and rural communities. It was a very interesting and eye-opening moment for me. I admit it, I'm a technological optimist, but doesn't mean I blindly trust everything, that it is technology as a solution, automatic solution for everything. Still, during the foresight, we saw how broader the concerns were, and how touches the values and the principles of our society, our communities. It was a very inclusive approach. We went around Europe, we spoke with farmers, we spoke with local communities, and we came up with this report, which is online. It's available. It was published 1.5 years ago. And at the same time, we also understood that one of the problems was that the member states that are the direct contact very often with the farming community did not, well, they were asked to develop a digital strategy in their CAP plans, in the Common Agricultural Policy plans. But okay, we received some strategies which were very heterogeneous. And so we understood that, in fact, that an official in the ministry was asked, you have 2 days to draft a digital strategy. What is this? Okay, you invent something. And so we provided some guidelines, but it was not enough for them. So we said, okay, when next time they develop a digital strategy, we would like them to be guided. So we developed a toolkit for the member states to develop a digital strategy. And so we have, it's digital, so you would expect it's a digital tool, but no, it's a box. It's a box like this, which we gave to all the member states of the European Union, and which contains a card game. So it's not a game, it's serious. But inside this card game, you see, imagine you have a bunch of officials around the table, and you don't know where to start. I mean, if they don't have a clue about the challenges. So there are questions, a set of questions. What are the ways to minimize digital divide? Which marginalized and vulnerable groups may be negatively impacted by digitalization? So to start a conversation and to have these cards guiding and starting the conversation so they can develop a digital strategy that really address the reality on the ground for farmers and rural areas. There are also, so we are in the digital world, we have plenty of data, but when you want to understand the real questions, we always lack the data we need most. And so we launched, we asked our colleagues in the GRC also to launch a survey, and they went in 9 member states, and they collected evidence from the farmers, really 1,400 farmers, not only, which technology you adopt and which, to calculate the degree of adoption, but also why did you choose this and why not this other? What are the barriers? What are the problems? And we didn't stop to digital tools. We went into also questions about what happens to your data. Are you concerned? Who has the data? Where does it go? Do you get it back? Do you get services? Do you have to pay for the services? Very interesting process. This report from the GRC will be published very soon. It was already announced in December at the digital conference, and it will be published soon. Another thing which, in fact, was very interesting for me to understand a bit the state of play was, you remember last year, the protests of farmers in Brussels and in many places in Europe. We launched a survey to farmers to ask questions about where do they see the administrative burden or the complexity of the policy, and what can we do to help? And there were quite a few questions which linked up to the digital. So imagine 3 questions. The first one, the reply was, "Oh, I spent too many days working on the paperwork instead of being in the field. I don't like this." And then they say, "Oh, they asked me 2-3 times the same question during the same year. This is not possible." It's probably very often the administration. And then the following question is, do you use digital tools? No. And then we said, okay, maybe if we, for those who want and those who can use the digital tools, maybe we need to help that, facilitate that. So this idea of helping the administration to facilitate and the life of the farmers, and not the life of the administration. So a few hours ago, the Commission adopted a simplification package, which includes, for the first time ever, one article where we ask the administration in the member states to create a data governance authority with the responsibility to understand the data flows, the data that they have, and to, let's say, make order to that, avoid that they ask the same questions several times to the farmers, and that the farmers can always have access to the data, their data. Okay, now going to quickly to the report that I read with interest, your position paper. I think so. Let's start from the good side. I think it's honestly well written and well researched, and it provides really good examples. I cannot say that I was not aware of these issues, but in this way, in one paper altogether, with a good summary at the beginning, it is a unique piece of evidence that it's going to be very useful. And it fills a gap, and we cannot say later on that we didn't think about it. It's there, and it reminds us and fills this blind spot we have here in Brussels. Now, on the other hand, so for a techno-optimist, it's a bit depressing to see that there is almost nothing good in digital. There are a few things you refer to, of course, I acknowledge that, but it's overwhelmingly negative. And so I decided to look at it in a different way. So to reduce the scope, because I have a certain margin of maneuver with my team to create and to try to steer a bit this digitalization that we want, and not the digitalization that will happen anyway. But then, if you load the boat with everything, some of these things are really beyond my reach. So I decided to set aside for me the part on seeds, carbon, and land grabbing. I understand the link with digital, but I think it's a policy direction which you don't like for these things, and not the digital. Maybe it exacerbates, it facilitates, it makes it possible maybe sometime, but without a policy decision in that direction, that they wouldn't happen just because it's digital. So that's so focusing on the rest. I even made my statistics because I'm a geek, and I think there is, let's say, less than half, 12 of the points that you raise are purely digital. Many are addressed to both the European Union and the member states. 12 is not, you have 25 points, 12, let's say, purely digital, but in fact, it's sufficient that you have one to kill my day. For example, you have a couple which really are difficult for me to address. And the first one is the IP rights on digital tools. Very fair point, very, very important. At the same time, we live in a market economy, that we like it or not, and most of the things we buy and see and use are produced by companies, and they protect we are surrounded by patents, and this is how the world works. So we in the Commission can support the creation of open source when we finance it, for example. And so, but we cannot oblige a company, maybe in the US, that they should have open source code. The precautionary principle, as a citizen, I like, but in the digital, I find it difficult to understand where it starts and what it does. Where do we stop at certain moments, certain development because of the precautionary principle? But I'm open to look at that. So this is about the paper. Maybe a couple of words, if you allow me. On you also ask me what can we do to. So if I look at the current Common Agricultural Policy, and it's hidden here and there. In fact, there are, I call them the streams, and there is a stream here that, we ask the member state to have a digital strategy. So it's clear for them what is the problem or the need in their member state in terms of digitalization. But of course, as I said before, it's a bit a blunt tool. It's not harmonized, and maybe next time it will be better. Then there are, interventions. Some of them are partly digital. Some of them are not. Then you have the broadband support. The CAP support broadband reaching remote areas. But if I look at the CAP plans, only 2 member states use the CAP money for broadband. They use the resilient and the RRF funds for that. Skills. There is specific interventions to train on digital skills, advice, and to make available to advisors digital tools. Research and innovation, it's big, it's growing, and thanks God. And it includes, let's say, non-mainstream topics. The reboot food and other projects. Let's say the research is not afraid of going against the policy line of the moment. I could continue. Maybe a word about the data spaces. You maybe heard this. This is across Europe. We would like to create data spaces for many topics, including for agriculture. And a data space is a place where you can go and find data that you need, that you can go and sell the data that you need, that you have. You can get services and so on. So it's something which can happen, but we don't want that it happens, and it's called amazonfarm.com. I would like to be the European safe and trusted place where you can have this kind of exchange. Conclusion. I think so. When you recognize digitalization is happening, it has some, I think, many potentials and the benefits, and but as well challenges. As the previous speaker mentioned, the technology can be used for a good purpose, and sometimes some technology has a lot of negative elements. For example, in the Artificial Intelligence Act, the Union has forbidden certain use of AI, for example, forbidden. There's no discussion. Others are considered high risk, and there will be a lot of, let's say, compliance to make sure that they don't create negative impacts. So I think, and I chose a job in government because I think we are there to address the market failure when the things go wrong, not to accelerate those failures. So we are working to accompany this transition, and because the transition is happening, and it's like a car going downhill. We don't want to push on the accelerator downhill. On the contrary, we want to push the brake if there is a turn, and to avoid that we go out of the road. So you mentioned some elements, the right to opt out, and we are there to do exactly that, to protect the rights of those, let's say, who want a different approach, that they cannot afford it, etc. Also on the right to repair, I really go for it. The reality, even with my car, I cannot repair it anymore. I need to go to a special center. So you see, the reality beyond agriculture is also going even faster. So to really thank you very much for the opportunity to exchange with you and to go through this report, which is very insightful and interesting. And let's say it's a part of my conscience telling me basically pay attention on what you do next in the next months. We will come up with a EU digital strategy by the end of the year, and we will reach out to all parties in this period to complement all the information. So, and your contribution is really timely there. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much, Pierluigi Londero. It is very interesting, and it is not so often that we can come all together, the peasants and the policymakers, people who are really working experts working on those issues. So it was really good to listen to you, and thank you very much for reading and attentively reading and thinking on the issues, and bring your thoughts here for us as a food to also just think about it. So we have only 30 minutes left. Thank you so much for the ones who have shared their questions in the chat. I will quickly, thanks to my colleagues here who have grouped those questions under some titles, I will quickly read the questions, and I would like to ask our speakers to note down those questions, and whoever would like to give answer, we can make a round, one round, to just share your thoughts. If you do not feel like sharing your thoughts on those issues, for sure, you can skip. And later, I would also open the floor for interventions for the participants' comments. And later, we are going to close. But before that, as Edu lost connection in the end of his speech, I would like to give you, Edu, 2 minutes. If it is, I am again checking Edu if he's there. Yes, you are there. I would like to give you 2 minutes for your conclusion, please, closing your speech. And then I will take back again for the questions. Thank you very much. Okay, Edu, I am going to activate your mic. I hear that, or ask to unmute. Yes. Can you activate your mic right now? Yes.
Thank you. Now, thank you, Olche. It's funny enough at this digitalization webinar, I'm having such so many issues. I apologize to everyone. And thanks for giving me the space. And I appreciate Pierluigi a lot. I took a lot of notes from your contribution. So thank you very much. Yeah, I think at the last, when I was finishing my contribution, it was just a conclusion. So I think some of these conclusions are also answering some of the questions we just raised by Jan or by Pierluigi. So I'm just going to read through them and leave space for all the audience to contribute. I was just saying that that demands an alternative and solutions, putting emphasis on how generational renewal, we think it's key for the future of the food systems we're talking about. So we have 5 demands when it comes from the youth perspective. The first one is that we want access to open source tools, as Pierluigi mentioned, and youth lead digital trainings, because we believe that this digital education should be free, open source, and co-created with young people. A second point is we believe that digitalization may serve our values and not corporate interest. What do we mean with that? That we reject digital tools that extract our data and concentrate power in few corporations. Because for agroecological practices, we advocate for the need of low-tech open source solutions that support communities and not top-down market-driven models. The third demand is that we want policies that give priority to youth access to land and resources. Just as a reminder, we always say with the youth group, only 3% of the CAP is allocated to young farmers. So it's impossible to talk about access to land. It's impossible even to talk about digitalization with such a little budget for young people. So without fair access to land, financial support and infrastructures, digitalization will only worsen the barriers that young people is facing in farming. And the fourth and last point is that we think that agroecology and traditional knowledge must guide digital innovation. So we need digital tools that enhance and not replace our agroecological practices and traditional farming knowledge, where innovation is created to support the entrance of new young farmers. So saying all this because we really believe that if we give priority to all these actions, digitalization can become a tool for empowering the next generation of European farmers. Thanks, Olche, for giving me the space for the conclusions.
Thank you so much, Edu, I know you are working today at the farm and you have come here. Also, Jean, it is also Anna. This is spring. We are almost summer and farmers are on the fields and there is no space for them other than their farming work. So I would especially thank you all for being here. And in the meantime, I am trying to put the 4 very quickly because you have shared those, Edu. the 4 demands of the youth. I will do it after I will read the questions for you. Now, thank you, my colleagues, for this incredible collection. So the first question was about data ownership. I just rephrased the question on the chat. It was, who controls and benefits from the data and information exchanged in agriculture? How is this data being used? And what influence do intellectual property rights have in governing access and ownership? So this is the first question. Second question is about trade, digitalization in the framework of trade. To what extent digital trade rules in free trade agreements are challenging for farmers? What elements are the most problematic elements? Third one is about carbon offsetting climate schemes. From ETC Group Soledad, also this is a comment about the computational capacity, the deployment of such a scheme of digitalization of agriculture for carbon offsetting would require the infrastructure of data centers and edge computing to put this in gear has an enormous material impact in land competition, water and energy, which also Jean in his speech mentioned about those issues. So this was a more comment part. On policy legislation part, we have a question from Valentin. And the question goes to Pierluigi, to you, specifically mentioned your name. The Data Act on the recent legislation in the EU that tackles digitalization. However, it is a broad legislation that states itself the need for sectorial intervention, even mentioning agriculture. Until now, the EU Commission did not start any process for a sectorial legislation. So his question is, 3 questions. When will the Commission start a sectorial legislation for agriculture? What will be the special challenge regarding the sectorial intervention? How will farmers, peasant organizations, how will peasant organizations be included in this process? So these are all questions. So I would like to open the floor for our speakers to give their insights, to give their feedback to those questions. And then I will open the floor to the participants, also give their opinion on those or on other topics. Thank you very much. I will give the floor. Who wants the floor, please? Yes, Pierluigi, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. The first one on data ownership and the last one on policy, they are connected. So I will cover both. So according to the Data Act that was adopted by the Commission and agreed by Council and Parliament in the last couple of years, and which is entering gradually into force, there is no we don't define ownership. And it's something which is advised by the major, OECD and other institutes that for an immaterial goods, replicable goods, we talk about licensing and things like that. So the definition is data holder, the person, the company that holds the data, and data user, those who are authorized to use the data. And to be fully transparent with you, because it's a general regulation, and because the big part of the data was about health and about mobility. The holdership of the data goes to those who have produced the machines that one uses. So in the case of farmer, if there is a connected tractor in the field, even if the farmer has bought the tractor and is using it on his field or her field, and even if he's sweating to do all this, the data are held by the tractor company. During the negotiation, we made sure that the farmer has the right to use the data. I would say almost all the data. So there are some data which remain with the tractor company, and these are the temperature of the engine. I don't think these are things which are interesting for the farmers. It's a way for the factories who produce this and innovate to avoid that their trade secrets are then going to China in reality. So holder, user, and the user can ask for the data and can transfer the data to whoever they want. So that's that we negotiated. The other thing which we negotiated, and Valentin made a good point, he is well aware, there is the possibility for sectorial legislation if the Data Act doesn't address the needs of a specific sector. And we explicitly wanted to put agriculture there because we were the only one, the only DG, which had a problem with this formulation. So it's a possibility, it's true. And we are ready to use it, but the Data Act is not yet in force fully, so we cannot even go ahead with that, with a sectorial legislation. Also, there is another thing which is important, is that in the agriculture sector, before the Data Act, there was a code of conduct which was agreed by several parties, which it's a voluntary scheme, and basically the parties, machinery, farmers, associations, they agreed that the data would be, their ownership was given to the farmers. So there was a voluntary scheme, which is now challenged by this new law, and there is a new version of the code of conduct being developed. So conclusion, before we go ahead with a new legislation, we need to see if the Data Act works or not, and if the code of conduct works or not. So it might take some time. Also, to be honest with you, the political will for this kind of sectorial legislation is very low. And if there is a need, we will propose it, and we will try to address the problems. On the process of preparing a law like this, there are we will have to do an impact assessment, we will have to do stakeholder consultation and all the rest. So we, there is a room for maneuver for that. So there will be a place for discussions. And I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anna, please.
Hola, sí, sobre el tema de los datos. No he entendido muy bien la segunda pregunta. Después, si puedes repetírmela, te lo agradecería. Pero respecto a los datos, a mí lo que me preocupa de los datos no es que no tengamos las herramientas para que nos sirvan a los agricultores y a las agricultoras. El problema, me preocupan dos temas que para nosotras están al orden del día. Uno es el sistema de monitorización de la PAC a través del Sentinel y la cantidad de datos que hay, que yo no sé quién los maneja, pero evidentemente todas las parcelas, por lo menos en el Estado español, que se declaran en la solicitud única de las ayudas de la PAC, están monitorizadas y tienen un nivel de control impresionante. Y otro tema es la obligatoriedad a partir del año 28 en España y a partir del 26 para los tratamientos fitosanitarios del cuaderno digital. El cuaderno digital es una herramienta que vamos a tener que usar.
Anna, excuse me. I think there is a problem in the booth, English booth. We had two Now we have none. So please, can you repeat again?
Ok. La segunda cuestión es la obligatoriedad a partir del año 28 del cuaderno digital, a partir del año 26 para los tratamientos fitosanitarios. Esto quiere decir que vamos a tener que anotar en un cuaderno digital todas nuestras actividades como ganadera, en este caso, a lo largo del día, como ganadera y como agricultora, porque nosotros tenemos tierras, trabajamos fincas con las que les damos de comer a nuestros animales. Esa información está en manos de empresas privadas que son las propietarias de los cuadernos digitales. Esa información a nivel global es muy útil para otras empresas que les interesan todos los datos de la agricultura y la ganadería española. Entonces, a mí eso es lo que me preocupa, no mis datos a nivel individual, sino el comercio de esos que se puede hacer de esos datos a nivel global. Por ejemplo, en nuestra organización insistimos en que el cuaderno digital tiene que ser público. Hemos perdido la batalla. Hay cuadernos públicos, pero la mayoría son privados, que están enlazados al sistema, digamos, del Ministerio de Agricultura. Y después otro tema, que es una reflexión más que una contestación, es que yo no sé si le he entendido a Pierluigi que en el sector agrícola como que teníamos un poco perdida la batalla de la digitalización, no sé, no lo he entendido bien. Yo creo que somos uno de los sectores manuales, es decir, que trabajamos con las manos, que más expertos en digitalización. Yo conozco pocos albañiles o pocas trabajadores de la cerámica que sepan qué es el Sentinel. No conozco a casi nadie que sepa cómo hacer una fotografía georreferenciada. No conozco a casi nadie que tenga que trabajar permanentemente con sistemas informáticos. Entonces, bueno, me parece que estamos bastante, digamos, puestos en el tema digital. Y nada más. Era una preocupación por el tema de los datos y una apreciación. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Anna. Can I ask Jean to take the floor? I am just a little bit worried about the time because I really would like to open the floor to the participants. Would you, Jean, answer the questions related to climate schemes? And also, there's another question on the chat about the CFS Committee on Food Security of FAO. And the question is that I don't think I heard about CFS Committee for Food Security, UN recommendation on data governance in food system. What is ECVC's position regarding these recommendations? Can it be useful for the EU to work on data management? So I would like you to answer those two questions. Thank you. And please briefly.
Sure. Well, the first one will be very brief because I think it was more of a comment than a question. But indeed, we agreed that, as said before, the impact of data centers and storing data on climate is actually important and growing fast, and that this is a question that needs to be addressed at some point. Also, again, linking with farmers, when we see now that there is a push for farmers to produce energy on their farms, being solar, wind, or any kind of, let's say, renewable energy, even if I don't really agree with this term sometimes. And at the same time, we need more and more energy for digital tools. So that comes back to what I was saying, that I think we need to balance the benefits and costs of each technology, and that sometimes some technological tools, some digital tool might help to reduce the footprint on the environment, and sometimes actually the energy and raw material needed to make these tools function will actually hinder any positive effect that it might have after that on the field. So we have to balance that quite efficiently. And that's a very good point that we're raising actually also here as an international movement, because we know that the global south is really often impacted by mining projects, for example, to mine for lithium, cobalt, or anything else needed for these technologies. So we need to think about that, and that's a very good point. And then about the other question on the CFS, so for people who don't know, the CFS is the International Committee for Food Security from FAO, so the UN, United Nations Body on Agriculture and Food. And they released, I think it was a few months ago, last year, some kind of recommendation on digitalization. Basically, we as Via Campesina International, we are a member of the CSIPM. So that's basically a group of, let's say, representing civil society in this Committee of Food Security. So the CSIPM is the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism. So this is where actually civil society and, in our case, farmers can talk with FAO. And so we released, the CSIPM, including Via Campesina, we released a reaction to that document on digitalization, and that actually we are quite concerned with the conclusion of this document, and we are not aligned with most of it, because that we think it will, well, there is a lot of things with data and data ownership, but this has been covered here just before, so I will not come back to that. But basically, I would say that, again, we think that we need more public control and more public policies in order to manage all this new sector, and to be sure that farmers are not going to be impacted badly by these trends that we see at the moment, because we know that small-scale farmer cannot face transnational companies when it comes to ownership of data, technology, and things like that. So again, the main critique, I would say, my main conclusion would be the same as before. We need public control, we need public management, and we need down top, I mean, we need to include the users of these technologies, namely here the farmers, in the policy making in order to protect them and to address their needs and their demands. And in such situation, then we will have useful digital tools for farmers. But if not, it might actually, again, make it even worse for the already excluded people from farming. And I will conclude with one last example to explain how and what is the kind of thing we're talking about. For example, when we talk about carbon credits, if you want to sell carbon on the market, you need to prove that you're actually storing some carbon on your farm. But if your farm is already an agroecological farm that has been storing carbon in the soil for the past 20 years, then you have nothing to sell, because you are already storing carbon. So you're not storing more carbon than before. While an industrial farm that's been destroying the soil for the past 20 years will be able to store some carbon because they have no more carbon in their soils. So yeah, just to explain it a bit again, how and why we think we have to be really careful with how these policies are implemented, because even something that looks like a good idea at the beginning might in the end exclude small and medium-scale farmers. Thank you, Olcay. Back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jean. So there are two more questions, but before that, I would like to see, first of all, I would like to see everyone. If there is anyone who would like to contribute to the discussions, if there is something that was not mentioned that the person thinks that it is very important to share here, please raise your hand so that I can give the floor to you for 3 minutes. I see. Have I seen Antonio Onorati? There's a move, Antonio, where you are, but I cannot. Maybe.
Yes, I am here.
Yes. We can't see you. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, digital divide for the European Union. I am in a farm, I am in Rome, but the connection is bad in any case. No, I will move to French because it's better. J'ai seulement un commentaire. On a parlé beaucoup de données, on a parlé toute l'après-midi de données.
Antonio, excuse me, again, in the booth, we have two English.
Et donc?
Can I hear English, please? English interpretation? Hello? Yes, very good. One person, perfect. Okay, Antonio, please go on.
Oui, je crois que je ne vais rien ajouter de tout ce qui a été dit. Juste une remarque. On n'a pas parlé assez, je crois qu'il faut qu'on travaille plus peut-être à niveau du ECVC sur le fait que les données comme telles, ils n'ont pas de valeur ajoutée. Ce sont les informations qui donnent aux données la valeur ajoutée. Et donc, toute cette partie doit être encore approfondie parce que c'est là qui se posent les problèmes qui a été cité aussi par l'Union européenne dans son intervention, les problèmes des droits de propriété intellectuelle. Ces problèmes-là, ils sont au cœur des négociations et d'une possible gouvernance. Et si on n'arrive pas à approfondir ces données, cette partie-là, je crois qu'il y aura toujours une réaction de résistance, comme a été dit, au niveau des agriculteurs. Mais je vais être très clair, on a discuté ça. Moi, je participais aussi à la discussion au CFS. Les paysans et les paysannes ne résistent pas à l'innovation, ils produisent de l'innovation. Ils résistent à la digitalisation comme elle est imposée à ce moment et comment les politiques publiques ne sont pour le moment arrivées à régler une gouvernance qui donne à la valeur des informations une valeur sociale plutôt que privée. Merci. Mais ça a été un bon travail, un très bon exercice.
Thank you very much, Antonio. If there is no other point, I would like to conclude. So I would like to ask one more time if there's anyone. Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining us today. So as we close, I want to come back to the core messages that we hear in the discussions, in the presentations, that the peasant members mentioned very strongly that climate justice must come from the ground up, and agroecology, rooted in peasant knowledge and practices, offers real solutions to today's social, environmental, and economic crisis. But for this to happen, digitalization must serve peasant agroecology, not replace it. And it is very clearly mentioned also in the document, in the political position. ECVC is not against digitalization, but digitalization must serve peasant agroecology. It shouldn't replace it. It should come, it should be effective for the needs of the peasants. What we need for that is, Pierluigi also mentioned quite a lot, what they are doing over there is that public policies. But not only public policies, we need, together with public policies, justice and diversity, not speculative markets and corporate-led technologies. So digitalization, again, must support small-scale food producers and strengthen territorial food systems. So it must never become a tool for deepening inequality, as Anna mentioned in her introduction, or centralizing power. So we also heard clearly today that in Eduard's presentation, youth must be at the center of this transformation that we need. Young people are ready to take up farming, but they need to access to land, they need autonomy, they need a dignified income, not technological barriers or false promises of innovation. So digitalization alone will not secure generational renewal, which is, I think, quite clear for many layers of the society. So it must be a part of a much broader political effort to value and support small-scale farming as a way of life. So lastly, I want to sincerely thank our speakers, Anna, Edward, Jean, and Pierluigi, for their thoughtful contributions and for helping us reflect from different perspectives. Many thanks also to our interpreters for making this event accessible across languages, and to the ECVC support team, ECVC members who have given so much thought, so much work, labor in this publication. Thank you for making this web, and the team here also for making this webinar run smoothly despite the internet connection issues. So before we sign off, please check the chat again, because Chloe at 4:57, she has shared the ECVC website, where you will find all our positions and publication statements and our work. The YouTube channel, where we are going to post today's webinar, the recording of this webinar very shortly. And again, link to the publication we launched, The Challenges of Digitalization Brings to Peasant Agroecology. So lastly, please stay connected with us on the ECVC website, social media, and the future events. So together we can fight for a food systems that are just, ecological, and led by those who feed the world. So thank you, everyone, again, and see you soon. Please connect with us. Thank you.